And you said the proof was what? How much?
117.
117. This is the
This is the
weakest.
weakest of
The weakest of okay.
He shot it. That's pretty good. These are sipping whiskeys, or
I saw you lean back. At first, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sip it, but I saw you lean back, so I thought you were gonna take it all.
yeah, this is designed to last like maybe an hour. You sip on this a little bit. Yeah,
I went too hard too fast.
you named the podcast right there.
Right. Hey, welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast podcast. In this episode, I'm with Mike Cameron in the Devil's River Distillery here in San Antonio, Texas. I really love your whiskey. We'll get into how much I love it in a little bit. We're going to talk about how you got started with the whiskey, why here San Antonio, and then some history, some fun facts, some awesome news that I'm sure you guys are aware of right now. But let's sit back, buckle up, let's go too hard, too fast. Hey.
This is Mike Cameron with Devil's River Distillery in San Antonio, Texas, and I'm going too hard and too fast.
Cheers. All right, Mike. I'm honored again to be part of the podcast because this is one of my favorite whiskeys. Now I say that with saying I would say I have two of them and the other one's not going to be mentioned because they're not on the podcast. But when I've had this one, the coffee flavor is my favorite. I'm not. Are you able to pick favorites?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Distiller Select is my favorite. Everyone here at the distillery knows that that's kind of my whiskey of choice. But I'm a bourbon purist. We got into the flavored whiskeys a couple years ago because the market was trending that way. So now flavored whiskeys make up about 25% of all whiskeys that's sold in the United States. So it was an important category to recognize and know that it's something that we should consider, and it's gone really well. Our flavored portfolio has been well received.
Is the coffee, was that considered flavored, or is that?
Yeah, so the flavored whiskeys, having a flavored bourbon, it was controversial because bourbon purists, which I love bourbon, and I've always loved bourbon, they want to protect that name, and I appreciate that and understand it. But at the same time, bourbon can be expressed in other ways, and adding flavor to those bourbons to create different, profiles, to me is completely acceptable. And now a lot of whiskey companies are doing it. We were the first to introduce really the flavored bourbon category. There was very few of us out there at the time, and the coffee was our first. But I wanted to set out and do something that was first and foremost all natural. We don't use any artificial ingredients in any of our flavorings, starting with the coffee, which was the first one that we released. And we're working with a local San Antonio roaster over by the airport, San Antonio Coffee Roasters, and they roast the beans for us. We're using beans from fair trade bean farms, in South America, basically Brazil, Colombia, and Nicaragua is where we harvest our beans from. And it's on the darker end of a roast, so it's a Vienna roast. And it has a caffeine level between an espresso and a cappuccino, so it's got a pretty good amount of caffeine in it. And it's also not a liqueur. I wanted it to be a true whiskey. There's a lot of things out there that call whiskeys that aren't even whiskey because they're less than 40% alcohol.
Yes.
So the coffee bourbon is in the agave and cinnamon are all 40% alcohol. So that was important to me as well. The sweetness profile in that coffee comes from agave. We harvest 100% Blue Weber agave from Jalisco, which I went down and formed a partnership with an agave farmer down in Jalisco, and we bring that up through Laredo and into San Antonio. So that is that's kind of how it all started, was with coffee first. The reason I chose coffee is it's very versatile. People are making all kinds of fun things with it. Coffee, espresso martinis, desserts they're making with it. They're just drinking it neat. A lot of people just prefer it with an ice cube. But coffee is, people can argue, it's the second or third most consumed beverage in the world. You got water, tea, and coffee. So, so we're in the top three. I figured it'd be a good way to start. So.
Yeah, and then now you can add four for whiskey.
That's right. That's right.
Now it's great that you bring up the all natural, because again, when I've seen other flavored whiskeys, and I'm not sure I see too many coffees, but I always look at the fact that some of them are like 25%, 35%, like that 40%, like you said, is gone, and to me it kind of just seems like a waste of money. So seeing that and the flavor, like it doesn't taste artificial. It almost does taste like you can pour it into a mug and take it to work. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Start your week off with coffee bourbon. No, that's real important, and I hear that a lot. Is this tastes real to me, and it's because it is.
Yeah.
And people can taste the difference between real and artificial. We do blind taste tests all the time. I won't mention the other brands, but we like to know how we compare. Mm-hmm. So we do blind taste tests with our coffee bourbon against other coffee liqueurs, other coffee whiskeys, and we hands down win most of the time. I'd say 98% of the time or more we're being chosen, and I think it's for that reason, because most of the flavored spirits out there are using artificial ingredients.
Perfect. Now, speaking of different flavors or different whiskeys, I'm not sure if it's on camera, but we do have a flight of each, and I know you know which ones these are.
I do.
It's 3 different ones that we're going to taste at the end of the episode, right before our Too Hard, Too Fast question. So I'm excited for this tasting of this flight.
And because I'm a bourbon purist, I brought real bourbon for this tasting. So we can talk about anything you want, of course, but we'll finish off with real bourbon.
Perfect. So let's go with that, because I like my whiskey. I like to drink. I like going too hard, too fast. But I don't know the difference of different. Like I know vodka, I know whiskey, I know tequila. But what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey?
Yeah, well, there's an old phrase that all bourbons are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are bourbons. And basically what that means is there's probably 30 different types of whiskeys, maybe more, maybe less, somewhere around there in the world. And you've got, for example, Canadian whiskey, Irish whiskey, Scotch whiskey. You've got corn whiskey. You've got moonshine type of whiskey, Japanese whiskey, Indian whiskey from India. I mean, it goes on and on. But bourbon it's special to me because it is owned by the United States. Mm-hmm. It's protected by the appellation of the United States. And the United States is made up of people from all over the world. It's a melting pot of cultures. So how it evolved and where it evolved, it's kind of like our music. There's a lot of different types of cultures that came to brought bourbon to where it is today. So and it speaks to the great things we have in this country. So May 5th, 1964, I believe, is when Congress officially passed into law that bourbon be the official spirit of the United States.
So nobody else can make it?
Nobody else can make it. They can make it, you could make bourbon in, Italy, but you can't call it that.
Oh, okay.
Just like I could make tequila here, I just couldn't use that name.
Right.
So it's smart for countries to protect their appellation. It's champagne, cognac, tequila, mezcal, bourbon, whiskey. Things that aren't protected would be, for example, vodka, gin, rum. You can make those anywhere in the world.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but why would different countries or different parts of the world protect, like, let's say, bourbon? Why would we want the market in that, other than money?
Well, I've studied spirits. A large part of my education has been studying the history of spirits, and no matter where you go in this world, there is a native spirit to a country, whether it's, pisco in Peru or, sake in Japan or, tequila and mezcal and sotol in Mexico. It's part of their culture. And I think that's the bigger reason that they protect it, is to emulate, their native spirit to the rest of the world, and no one else can take it. It's kind of like the origins of music, and it's interesting to know that the blues were formed in the United States. So it's a lot of cultures to make that. So the blues kind of reminds me of whiskey. I think they go together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's smart for nations to capture something that's native to them. I think that was the bigger reason.
It's kind of like holding on to their culture.
That's right.
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
That makes sense.
And the other thing about bourbon is that it's not just putting a name on there. It's a process that's protected. So, it's interesting. There's so many varieties of whiskey out there, of bourbon whiskey, but they're all using the same ingredients. They use water, they use grain, and they use yeast. That's it. You can't use anything else in bourbon except those three ingredients. But the different nuances and different flavor profiles that can come out of different yeast strains, different grains, different water, different aging techniques is vastly different. I mean, you can have thousands of varieties and combinations of whiskey profiles from bourbon just from those simple ingredients. So I think that's fascinating. Whiskey cannot be distilled more than 160 proof by law. It cannot be put in a barrel more than 125 proof by law. It has to be aged in brand new American white oak barrels. It cannot be aged in used barrels. So we have to use new barrels every time we age our whiskey.
What do you do with the old barrels?
Great question. We sell them to tequila producers.
Okay.
In Mexico, we sell them to Scotch producers because there's a lot of other markets out there that use bourbon barrels for aging their spirits. But with bourbon, it's got to be brand new every time.
Interesting. Is it flavored wise? Is it tradition wise? Or why can't you reuse it?
Well, there's some controversy over how that came to be. One of the congressmen that really pushed hard on this bill, his family owned a lumber mill. So just follow the money. They got to use new barrels every time.
Interesting, yes.
The other requirement is that bourbon has to be at least 51% corn in what's called the mash bill, which is the combination of grains that make up what's inside of the glass. So those are all requirements that you cannot change. You can't add artificial coloring or flavoring to pure bourbon. Mm-hmm. And so that's it. And so it keeps it that way. The barrel, I like the fact that it's new barrels because, it's charred. There's 5 levels of char. Some claim 6, but I say there's 5. And that charring happens from putting a propane flame inside of the barrel to char the inside of the barrel.
Does that like to seal it?
Well, no, it's more so as the distillate is aging inside of the barrel. The temperatures change. We have 2 seasons here in San Antonio, hot and hotter, I say.
Yeah, right.
We're not like Kentucky or Tennessee. So the advantage we have for aging whiskey in San Antonio, for an example, is our whiskey ages faster. It's not so much the heat, but it's the barometric pressure inside that barrel that pushes that distillate into the staves of the wood to where it spends more time in the wood. And it's gathering flavor congeners, it's gathering lignans, it's gathering sugars, it's gathering caramel notes, honey notes, all coming from that wood because it's spending more time in the wood. So it's good and it's bad. The bad thing about aging whiskey in Texas is we have what's called a high angel share. So water molecules are smaller than whiskey molecules, so water's going to leave the barrel first. The volume of whiskey is going to drop inside that barrel at a much more rapid pace. We're going to lose 15% of the 53-gallon barrel in year 1 of aging, so it's pretty frustrating to see the angels steal all that. Yes, through evaporation.
Yeah. They were actually on the way in. They mentioned about the angel share. I never even thought of that, and then the fact that yes, in Texas it's a lot hotter. So do you lose it quicker then?
Yeah.
And so but and in that case, is that why? I'm sure like other like the Kentucky whiskeys, and they're able to store it for longer.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it gets to the point of diminishing returns. I mean, if we had a barrel, rick house, called a rick house, where you age whiskey, at our rick houses for 20 years, like some of those Kentucky bourbons are, there wouldn't be anything left in the barrel. It'd be tar in the bottom. It would be gone. So, and what makes Texas whiskeys different? Well, I use all Texas-grown agriculture from the Panhandle. We use number 1 yellow dent corn, we use Braceto rye, and we use a malted barley, all grown in Texas. And it's got its unique terroir. as far as which is a kind of a native flavor profile to the soils and the rain patterns in this state. But typically, a Texas whiskey is going to be bolder in flavor because the aging has been accelerated, so it's going to be stronger notes. Your honey, your caramel notes are going to be more bold, typically in a Texas whiskey.
Nice. Speaking of where you're sourcing, the Devil's River name comes from a river near Del Rio, Texas, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I've heard that do you source your water from the river or just from there, or
yeah,
is that a secret?
No, it's not a secret. First of all, I didn't want to be accused of draining this precious river, so I have an agreement with a ranch owner on the very southern end of the Devil's River.
Okay.
It's about a 10,000-acre ranch right before it drains into Lake Amistad.
Yes.
So there's springs on that ranch which contribute to the Devil's River, so we harvest water out of those springs. And it's not all the water that's in our whiskey, it's just what we finish the whiskey with. So every bottle of Devil's River has some water from the Devil's River, depending on the proof. Uh-huh. And to make good whiskey, any good distiller will tell you requires good water. So we start with good water here that's processed in a certain way to meet certain pH standards and hardness standards, and then we finish it with water from the Devil's River. But we like to say that we give back more than we take. We make an annual donation to the Devil's River Conservancy for river cleanup, river protection, river awareness. And we most recently...
which, by the way, the other reason, other than me loving the whiskey, when I was on y'all's social media, I ran across that, and that really impressed me. I was like, not only do they make awesome whiskey, I'm not just saying that because you're on here. I really do love this whiskey. But the fact that you're giving back to, here in Texas, our natural soils and what we're getting from the river, especially I think we need to protect our rivers a lot more.
Absolutely. And I discovered the Devil's River back in college. I went down there with some friends to float the river and had no idea about this beautiful place. And I certainly didn't think I'd be in the whiskey business this many years later, but it was just a name that came to me. I thought, that would be a cool name for a whiskey. So I took it, and it worked. And I decided to expand our initiative because we've now expanded into 36 states, 5 countries. We're in over 200 military bases around the world. We're on Carnival, Norwegian, and Celebrity cruise lines with this whiskey. And we go to other states, like I was in Michigan earlier this week, and they have wild rivers up there too. And I've had people from other states say, well, it's great that you support the Devil's River, but what about the wild river in my state? So it got me to thinking about what can I do to have a bigger impact. So I reached out to AmericanRivers.org, and it's a national organization that protects wild rivers. And I asked them if I could be the official whiskey of American Rivers, and we also use funds from this company to support them as well. So it seemed like it was a bigger message for us to support all wild rivers. I find it to be an apolitical issue. Who doesn't love a wild river?
Right.
And to stay out of politics and support nature. And so it's worked pretty well for us. So.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's really, like I said, it's really impressive. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't know. I think people are obviously finding out about Devil's River whiskey, but the efforts that you guys are doing, again, I definitely wanted to make sure we talked about that as well.
Thank you for bringing it up, yeah.
No, of course. Well, I think you brought it up, and I just piggybacked.
However we got there, all worked.
But, so speaking of keeping it Texas, you're also keeping it puro San Antonio. Why? Because when I was researching, I thought I heard that there's a place up in Dallas that you had, but... maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I misread. But I never really thought, at least when I was first finding out about Devil's River, that it was here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And then, so.
Yeah, and actually, our offices, when we first started this company, were up in Frisco, Texas. Okay. And the only reason they were up there, I didn't own the offices. I just rented them, leased them. But all the employees I found to kick off this company were all from there. And instead of relocating all those people down here, it just seemed to make sense. So I stayed here, and I went up there, and I got tired of going up there. So I said, everything's moving to San Antonio. So,
are you originally from San Antonio?
No, I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And but I've been a Texan most of my life, since the majority of my life. I'd say probably over 45 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been in San Antonio for 30 years. So.
Oh, yeah.
But why San Antonio? I love this city. I love the history of this city. It's got so much charm and history, and this is the second distillery that I've done, and the first distillery was also in San Antonio, but more of a destination type distillery. And I wanted this to be like right in the middle of downtown. It wasn't easy to do because it took the city 1 year to decide whether I could actually build a distillery here in downtown San Antonio. They're worried about safety.
Right.
I mean, we're making highly flammable liquid in an office building. What could go wrong?
All right. Oh, I thought you meant because, San Antonio people are rowdy.
No. They welcome that part. So finally, after 1 year, they approved the project to move forward. So I didn't get to start construction until after a year of working back and forth with the city. So it was frustrating, but I get it. They were trying to be safe, but
Right.
We operate very safely. We're very very cautious about everything we do. And then being a block and a half from the Alamo, a block from the Riverwalk, 85% of the people that come through here are from somewhere else. So it's really been great to meet all these wonderful people from all over the United States, other countries, and tell them about Devil's River, and they go back to their home state and look for it. And that's been kind of a cool experience that I didn't expect. I thought there'd be a lot more locals coming down here. I didn't think it'd be only 15% that we see, but we'd love to have more locals. So come on down anytime.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. It might be because I won't even get into that. It's just like, I am not from San Antonio originally either, but I've been here since 2005, so I kind of want to claim now San Antonio.
Yeah, you've earned it. That's long enough.
Right. Long enough to I don't make my way down to downtown as much as I should.
Yeah.
But every time I do, there's different things and that are popping up that I enjoy. So it's definitely bringing me out here, and so obviously having the distillery here, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great city, and it just kind of made sense. The person that named the Devil's River was John Coffey Hayes, and John Coffey Hayes spent a lot of time in San Antonio. He was a famous Texas Ranger who later moved to San Francisco and became the sheriff of San Francisco and helped settle the West. I mean, this is in 1850, 1845. And Spanish explorers originally came to the Devil's River in 1590, and they discovered it, and they called it St. Peter's River. And it was called that for quite a while. And John Coffey Hayes was down there on an expedition with some scouts, and they'd been battling, rattlesnakes, mesquites, hot weather, probably some Comanches. Who knows what they're battling down there? But it was pretty a tough ride on horses. By the way, it's very remote down there.
Right.
And they finally got to this river, and one of the scouts said, "This is St. Peter's River, San Pedro." And he said, "St. Peter, this is more like the Devil's River."
Yeah.
So the story goes is that John Coffey Hayes named it in 1840. So when you see our logo and it says 1840 on there, that's what that means.
And that's funny. I went from the gates of heaven to the devil's playground. That's interesting.
That's right. And it's not the actual devil. A lot of people think it is. We don't have an apostrophe in our label, and neither did John Coffey Hayes. He was just talking about the devils of the world, and we know there's a lot of them, right?
Yes. No, I didn't even think of that. That's crazy because I've always I've seen it and it crosses my mind like, the apostrophe, but yeah, that's interesting. I always thought of it as like the Devil's River instead of
Right.
Devil's River. I think I'm working myself backwards here. But how did you get into did you even know that this is where you're going to end up? What was or at least what was your career in mind as you were growing up? And then what made you end up pivoting to being
I've always been mechanically inclined. I love working with my hands. In my career, I've, got certified as an aircraft mechanic. I owned a tractor dealership. Always used to tinker with things when I was a kid. So you have to be that way to be in this business because things break all the time, and you got to know how to fix them, and you have to know how things work, hydraulics, electronics, all those things. So that helped. I used to do just home brewing and home distilling, Never really thought about doing it commercially ever.
Yeah.
But there started to become this movement of craft distilleries popping up a little bit here and there, starting with Tito's right here from San Antonio, that kind of piqued my interest. I've known Tito for a long time, and
Wait, Tito Vodka?
yeah,
They're from San Antonio too?
they are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought they were Austin.
Yeah, well, he's up there, but he's from San Antonio,
Oh.
Alamo Heights guy,
Oh, wow. Interesting.
and but his last name is Beverage. How's that?
No
That's
way.
interesting. It's like meant to
awesome.
be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you know,
Before we keep going, when you said home brewing, are you like you bought a kit from a store, or you just
built
handmade
my own
everything?
kit. Yeah,
Kind
and
of
then
like moonshining. Is that what we're talking
well,
about?
this was
here?
brewing, and then I did home distilling too, and that was moonshine.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
But just for personal use, and maybe with some friends and family you share it with. But I just really enjoyed it. It was an interesting idea, and first looked at getting into the spirits distribution business, but that was really competitive, and I just decided to go into spirits and producing spirits. The first product I released was a vodka, and then a whiskey, and then we did a single malt, and then I've kept my ownership stake in that company, but I've just always loved bourbon the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I started this with two partners in 2015, and we released our first Devil's River Expression in 2017. So all bourbon-based, either bourbon or flavored bourbons. That's all we do.
Right.
So
Wow, 2015 and 17. That is so recent. It feels like, obviously, I mean, I think I've just drank it too much. But I remember when I first found it at the store, it was kind of out of nowhere. The shape of the bottle is what interested me.
Mm-hmm.
It was unique, and so I don't think I bought it the first time I saw it, but the second time it caught my eye again. I was like, let me just get it. And I was like, this is the best.
I love that. I love that, yeah.
And then I started seeing, it took a while for me to like find it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the coffee one, and I think I saw the single barrel.
Yeah, back then we would have had barrel strength, and then we would have had
Barrel
rye whiskey too. Devil's River rye whiskey.
I know I've had the barrel strength. That's the stronger one, right?
Yeah, 117 proof.
So,
but that's the weakest of these three. So,
Oh, really?
So we're going to start with the weak one.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, because I remember that one was strong, and I remember I gave it to my brother too, and he was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Anything 100 proof or over is flammable. So proceed with caution.
Anyway, I forgot where I was going with that, but it was more like how difficult it was to find it, and then now I see it a lot, which is good, and then now having the distillery here. But how did you learn more about? Like, I know you love bourbon, but how did you just get into more of learning the different kinds of bourbon, and what struggles did you have building the whiskey?
Well, the biggest problem back then, I've been doing this now for almost 18 years, is learning the craft. There wasn't schools that you can go to, which we have now, to train people. There wasn't that structured of any kind of education. So I would find these one-off little courses in California, a lot of stuff online. I got some books in German and had them converted to English to try to understand what they were talking about. I went to Michigan State University. They had a distilling program. There was a master distiller that taught that program, Professor Chris Bergam, who's now passed away. But I had the lucky privilege to be working and learned from 5 different master distillers. And very few people have had that. I think it'd be hard to do that now, because the term master distiller I have an awful lot of respect for. There's only about, I'd say, 200 in the entire world. So to have 5 of them that I was able to learn from, to answer questions and bounce ideas off of, that was extremely helpful. I'm always learning. You have to be open to what's happening, and it's biology, it's chemistry, it's math, it's a lot of science, and there's a lot to it. But at the end of the day, you know what tastes good, and you know what people are going to like. And I tried to focus on a good profile for every expression that we make. So
How do you gauge what people are gonna like? Because I feel like that's the trickiest.
It is, yeah. I call it redneck marketing, and what that is like when I had the coffee bourbon initially releasing that, our team went out and we did sampling to over 1,000 people, and we might have 3 or 4 different samples in front of them, and we asked them to be brutally honest. I'm going to give you the liberty to tell us the truth, what you really think about this product, because we want to hear it. We're interested in knowing. Do you like the label? Do you like the bottle? Do you like the taste profile? Do you like our suggested price point? People are not shy about giving you their opinion if you give them the liberty to be honest. People will tell you something's great to your face if they don't like it, and I didn't want that. I want them to be honest. So in coffee, we probably, of those 1,000 people we surveyed, 90+% migrated towards a certain profile, and we knew that was the winner. That's the one we got to go with because that's what this sample group said they liked.
Right.
So it's not just what I like; it's what I ask a lot of questions, and you got to. I wouldn't be so bold to put Mike on my label, Mike's Whiskey, and say it's great. I want people to tell me that they like it before I would do anything. You've got to survey people.
Yeah, and especially as our palates are different, and that's why I feel like the gauging of what people are gonna like is gonna be the toughest.
It is, but of those 4 samples I've sampled on those people, 1,000 people, one stood out to all of them, and it was like, I like this one the best, and it goes over and over and over again, and that's when you knew you had a winner.
Yeah.
If everyone, like 25%, it was divided up among all 4 samples, I'd be a head scratcher. I'd go back to the drawing board. You got to start all over again because you don't have the answer yet. So take the time to ask your customers. There's a lot to be learned from the consumer.
And how do you for sure know? I mean, obviously the clear winner is there, but to get those, like you said, you want the truth versus just somebody being nice to you. Is there like any advice to getting that truth out? And especially for those that are, man, the truth hurts, especially when you're pouring your life.
I guess I just tell them, look, be brutally honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You can say anything you want to about this product. If you want to spit it out, you're not going to hurt my feelings. We're here to learn. So I give them that liberty to be honest. And if I do that and take that honest approach, I think most people are honest when it comes to that. If I just said, hey, try this, let me know what you think. Oh, it's good. They walk away and go, that's that crap. It was horrible. That's what you're going to get if you don't ask them and give them the liberty to be honest. So that I felt like after surveying our customers that they felt comfortable with being honest.
Is whiskey and bourbon, maybe more so bourbon, is it like the classy type of drink? Because I feel like, tequila, and this is just my opinion. I'm sure, tequila fanatics are going to hate this, but for me, tequila feels like the party drink, and then vodka is just like the sloppy drink. And then every time I see it, especially on TV, anywhere they're talking about whiskey or bourbon, it's like they have that classy feel, like
the Mexican culture, from my experience, and I've spent a lot of time in Mexico asking a lot of questions to Mexicans about tequila. And so many people grew up like yourself with tequila, and tequila in those days was cheap. It was considered a party drink like you're talking about. But tequila has really, because of the United States, become more elevated. Look how expensive tequilas are now, and how these craftsmen down in Jalisco are making these wonderful tequilas that are, finished in beautiful barrels, and they're aging them longer with super añejos, and so tequila as a category has been elevated, and it oscillates between tequila and bourbon as the number 1 and number 2 selling spirits now in all spirits. So tequila's gone from here to here, and it's no end in sight. It's continuing to grow. Whiskey, the same thing. I was down and met with the Tequila Council in Jalisco recently and learned a lot about the industry. 80% of all their sales are coming into the United States. And I think as the rest of the world begins to learn more about tequila, it's going to continue to grow. And there's starting to become a demand in Europe and Japan for tequila, as there is whiskey. So those are both great categories.
They are. The only thing I dislike, and you don't have to speak on this because I don't want you to get in any kind of trouble for this, but I feel like whiskey and tequila have been getting too expensive, too expensive, but rightly so for some. But for the others, there's some that are just, there's a name attached to it that does not.
Yeah,
And
so
that's just
so much of it is unwarranted, and you're exactly right. I mentioned earlier there's water, grain, and yeast. I mean, it's come on, it's not gold. It's not water, grain, yeast, and gold. So I do believe that there's a lot of companies out there that are just gotten too expensive, and I won't name names. But when I started this company, I went out and surveyed the pricing across the board in the retail stores, and 80% of the whiskey being sold was in the price range that we came out with. We don't make as much margin on this whiskey, but that's okay because we're reaching more consumers. If I charge 3 times as much as what I charge, we're going to have less consumers, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach as many people as possible.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that's perfect. I do believe it's a good price. I don't know if that says anything, but
well, we thought about it. We just didn't, put $70 on there and say you should buy this. I mean, we do tastings, and if you walk into a store and someone says try this brand you've never heard of, and they like it, but it's $70, they're still going to think maybe I'll just go to my bottle I normally buy. Yeah. But if it's the same price as what they're buying, then they'll say, yeah.
Yes, and I feel like especially for somebody like me that has has certain flavors that I like and certain things, but when it comes down to it, my palate is not as educated as maybe a master distiller. But if a $80 whiskey tastes the same as a $20 whiskey, I'm more likely going to go with the $20 whiskey.
Yeah, they have something called the daily drinker, and then they have something that's like for special occasions. And we do offer a variety of price points. Most of our portfolio is under $30, but we do have a couple of higher end whiskeys. One is a single barrel, which is $49. One's a Distiller Select, which is $59. And we have a 5-year rye that we're coming out with, which is fantastic, and it's going to be $79. But those are for those whiskey nerds that are looking for that special allocated occasion. It's a small percentage of our sales, but there's customers that want it. So most of who we appeal to is the masses, but we do offer some of those things. It's kind of like Nike. Yeah. They have those entry-level tennis shoes, and they got the high-end Jordans that you can't find, and everyone goes crazy over them, right? Yes. So it's kind of a similar model. Mercedes-Benz, they've got different levels. Oakley sunglasses, it's kind of, they have something for every customer.
Yeah, you got to make some for the general population and some for the nerds.
That's right. That's right. And I say nerds with all due respect.
No, I love it.
Because I'm a whiskey nerd. So.
Hey, I'm a nerd just at heart. But when I wanted to learn more about whiskeys and bourbons, I looked up a lot of it, and there's so many different says you're supposed to drink it neat, or you're supposed to one drop of ice, or two cubes. There's so many rules, but then the best one is just drink it and enjoy it the way you like.
That's the best rule. That's the best rule. Do I cringe when someone puts Coke in a Distiller Select? Absolutely. I drink my whiskey neat, and that's just my preference. But if someone likes it some other way, it's however you like it. It's your choice. It's like freedom. It's like we have the right to have freedom of speech and vote and drink the whiskey how we want to in this country. So.
Yes. But no, I do agree when I see, something that I think you should sip on, and it gets drowned in Coke or Diet Coke. And I'm like, no, ¿por qué? But no. So let's go to these. Before we go to tasting these, I do want to talk about a little bit on this huge announcement that you just kind of talked. You guys kind of just made about Dave Bautista.
Yes. Yeah. So the celebrity partnership was important to me because the craft spirits industry and the spirits industry in general has gotten so crowded. Mm. And how do you stand out in this sea of people, this sea of brands? And I think you kind of got to have some messaging that speaks to someone that might like your brand. So I have two requirements. You have to be someone who likes whiskey, and you have to be someone that's going to invest in this company. So the first celebrity I brought on was Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for now the Jets. Unfortunately, 4 plays into his new season, we were so excited to see Aaron, have a great season, and it seems like any celebrity gets flack, and Aaron got his share. But after spending a lot of time with him, he's a wonderful guy.
Yeah,
he's smart. He's witty. He likes whiskey, and so I wish him the best, and I hope he has another chance to come back. He's already had his surgery, I believe, in healing, and hope he comes back and plays for the Jets next year. And I'm kind of like a fighter for old men because I am one. He's not as old as me, and so that was kind of a strategic partnership. But unfortunately, NFL rules don't allow athletes in the NFL to promote spirits brands. It's kind of hypocritical because the NFL themselves are sponsored by Diageo. Teams can be sponsored by whiskey brands, so I could sponsor, the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
But players cannot. They can't have endorsement deals with spirits, and we're trying to get that changed.
Just spirit, because I feel like I've seen some players promoting like beers.
Not any kind of alcohol for players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hypocrisy, and I love the NFL, but I think that is not fair. NFL stands for not for long, right? So let them monetize their
or
NFL.
Not fun league, no fun league.
So anyway, I got introduced to Dave Bautista a couple years ago, and we've been talking for at least that long. Spent Super Bowl Sunday with him last Super Bowl in his house in Tampa. I like to hang around with someone long enough to get to know them. And I did the same with Aaron. But Dave, I spent enough time with him on the phone or in person to know that he's a good human being. He's got a big heart, sometimes controversial, but who isn't? He loves animals and, specifically dogs and rescue dogs, which I love that about Dave's passion. He's got a soft place in his heart for our military, which I do too. And he treats people with respect, and he's just a gentle giant. You see that mountain of a man, but he's really just a big, gentle giant. And so we started talking about a partnership and him being an investor and a spokesperson. So that's kind of how it came together. And now we made the official announcement.
Yeah.
So
it was a huge announcement.
We're getting a lot of press, and it's great for San Antonio. I had so many people text me, friends here. I didn't know you were working on that. So, and then of course he spent last week with us here, and.
I saw that, and I texted my wife. He was downtown.
Yeah, I gave him the Texas welcome. I took him over to Paris Hatters and got him fitted for a cowboy hat, and he loved that. He loves hats. And I was trying to buy his hat for him, and I went over to the register to pay, and they go, he's already paid. And I go, Dave, I said I was going to buy your hat. And he said, that's okay. He bought 12 hats.
Oh, wow.
And then we went over to Lucchese Boots and got him fitted for a custom pair of boots. It's going to be a while before they're ready, but he really enjoyed that kind of Texas welcome, nice. San Antonio welcome hat and boots, so the reason he was in town was for this military fundraiser that we were doing. It's an organization called Wish for Our Heroes, and Dave donated one of his custom Harley Davidsons, Devil's River logoed Harley Davidson, to the charity. I think it raised $65,000, something like that, for the charity.
That's good.
And so that's kind of an example of the kind of guy he is. He didn't have to do that. He came down here, on his own dime, and donated this great motorcycle, and thought it was pretty cool.
That's cool, because I really thought that he was only here because of the partnership and maybe like closing deals, but no, that's cool. I didn't even know that, that was going on.
Yeah.
What was the charity again? Or the
it's called Wish for Our Heroes, and I've been involved with them since they started. We have an annual event that Devil's River is the title sponsor for. It's called Whiskey and Wishes. What a great name. And we have it, different places around the city, and the money goes to help military families in need. A lot of people think that the military pays for everything, and they don't. Family needs help with a electric bill, or they get behind on regular bills, or food, or car breaks down, and there's they don't have money in the bank account to fix it, and so they just call a 1-800 number. They vet out the ask, and then they just mail them a check, and they've granted over 35,000 wishes, and I think all in they've raised over $20 million over the last 15 years.
Nice.
To help military families. So it's a great cause and a great organization.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of events, one of my favorite events is the barbecue cook-off.
Oh, yeah.
And y'all's tent, the Devil's River tent, is always the fun. I feel like when I was coming down here, it's always the funnest. Is what I was gonna say. When I was driving down here, I was thinking, it's like, I don't forget to mention that. Don't forget, because it's definitely the stop I need to make when I'm there with my friends. Like, the Devil's River tent is where we need to end up at some point.
Yeah, we have so much fun there, and I love barbecue, and I haven't paid any judges off, but we won grand champion 2 years in a row, nice. And that I don't think that's ever happened. And the judges told us in the 27-year history of the barbecue cook-off that we've taken the most banners. But I hire the best guys. We partner with Carlo Casanova and his cooking team, and they're so good and very passionate about what they do. And it got us a shot at Houston, and I think we placed 5th in Houston. I mean, you're talking about a very competitive barbecue cook-off. There's thousands of teams there, so and it's always good to have fun when you feed people alcohol and barbecue and have live music and. Mm-hmm. But we take that event as a fundraising element for SAIL, which is a San Antonio Livestock Show and Rodeo's scholarship program for youth. So we collect money during that event for donations, and then we turn around and give that, to SAIL.
So you're doing a lot for San Antonio.
I love the city.
Yeah, of course. That's really cool. And again, we're just closing off with Dave Bautista, huge fan, so this is even better. It almost feels like I'm friends with him, just because I like the whiskey. I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know much about Dave Bautista when I first got introduced to him, but I don't think I realized how big of a deal he is and how much he's liked, especially in this city. And it's just everywhere we went. I mean, people knew who he was and getting their picture taken with him, and made me happy because he's well recognized and he's worked hard in his career, and he's got 4 movies coming out next year, which we're real excited about, and but just a good human being.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think maybe San Antonio is a big wrestling city. Like it's always a big deal here, and I grew up a wrestling fan. My son is a wrestling fan, so he loves Dave Bautista too.
Awesome.
It's funny when we went back and watched a couple of videos of his old time in his wrestling career, and he was like, "Is that Drax? Is that Drax from the Guardians?"
He recognized
him. That's him. So now he's all into him.
That's great. I love that.
That's awesome. I've enjoyed my time talking about Devil's River. I think there's so much more we can talk about this whiskey. So we're gonna get into this flight right here, but before we do that, I'm gonna ask you for your Too Hard Too Fast story. But before I do that, where should people follow you or follow the Devil's River?
We're at Devil's R Whiskey is our handle on social media. Of course, we have a Facebook page and Instagram and X now. We're on X. So,
X.
So they can find us there. And you can always go online to our website. And if you have any questions, info@devilsriverwhiskey.com.
Perfect.
For any kind of inquiries.
And then get your whiskeys everywhere now, right?
Ooh, like I said, we're in 36 states. I still can't believe how fast it's grown. And when I got the phone call that, have you ever heard of Bullet Rye whiskey? Bullet Rye?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty big brand. It's owned by Diageo. They called us and said,
it's not spelled like actual bullet.
Right.
There's an I in there.
IET.
Right?
You're right. You're right. So they called us and said, well, we just took over Bullet Rye as the official rye whiskey on Norwegian cruise lines. And I'm like, what? With Devil's River? And they go, yeah. So that was pretty awesome for a little company like ours to compete with some of those larger companies. And then we got on Carnival and then Celebrity with our products. And so it's been a great run. It's been neat to see it grow fast. And hopefully Too Hard Too Fast is not going to be where we burn.
No. We will slow it down and enjoy it. Yeah, for sure. Perfect. Oh, man. I truly, like I said, this is a true honor to be sitting next to you.
My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be
being able to talk to you about this. I know we can talk more, and maybe someday I'll be able to get back invited here and we'll talk some more. But with that said, a Too Hard Too Fast story, either I was gonna say a drunk funny story, or maybe, but a funny story that happened to you, a cautionary tale, or words of wisdom. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I think my personal story is, you have one life to live, and you should do what you love to do, and it may take a while to find out what that is. It took me a while to find out what that was. I mean, I always tried to have a good attitude at whatever I did and be passionate about it, but if you can find something that you truly are passionate about, then hold on to that dream and stick with that dream, because it's when you're going to be the happiest, and it's your life. Yeah. And if you don't live it under your terms and your way, then you're shorting yourself of a life that you probably should have thought more about. So that'd be my simple few words.
No, that's perfect. It's perfect because I feel like definitely a lot of people are still struggling to figure out what they want at different ages, or what they're passionate about. I know, I have my career and I have this that I truly love, and I'm still trying to figure out what.
Yeah, I think I've young boys, they're getting older now, but they've gone through those same things, and I think everybody does, and I'm on the right path. It just, if you are passionate and you're an entrepreneur and you want to follow a dream and you believe in it enough, then it'll happen. Yeah. And there's people that told me that early in my career, and I wasn't say I was skeptical. I knew it was going to take a lot of work, and anything worth having requires a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right.
It took me a long time to get to where I'm at here, but it's been a fun ride, and I think that's the funnest part of it. Is I'm not looking forward to retiring someday. I'm looking forward to do what I get to do every day. I love what I do, and you should love what you do for a living. You should enjoy it, and everything has challenges. So Grandma used to say that there's always a silver lining to every problem, and you got to look at things that way, because there usually is a solution to every problem. And it's, one thing to have a problem, but what is the solution to fix it, and what is something positive that came out of this negative thing that happened? And there's usually something there.
Yeah, there's always something.
Grandma's wisdom.
Is there any fears still attached to what you're doing?
I would say I've pretty much lived my last 20 years fearless, because if you don't, you're going to get eaten up. You have to have confidence in yourself. You have to believe what you're doing is real, and don't listen to the naysayers, because they're always going to be out there. Whether it's the keyboard cowboys online that want to make comments and tell lies and those kind of people, I just ignore all that noise.
Perfect.
And I was glad to hear from Dave Bautista the other day, because every celebrity gets negative comments, and he said, Mike, I don't even look at that stuff. And that's kind of how I've always been. I just don't really look at it. Yeah. I mean, if we have 3,000 likes and one negative comment, that's a big win for me. Mm-hmm. And that the guy was just having a bad day or whatever. So
or really likes the whiskey, just wanted to talk some mess. Some people, and what I've noticed is that the negative comment is more so just to get your attention. They really like what you're doing. They really like whatever product people are selling.
I think there could be some truth to that. A couple
maybe
times,
not everybody, but
a couple times in my career, I've seen some negative comments, like on a restaurant. Like, that's a really negative comment, and I'll go in and look at that person's history, and everything they do is negative. So they're just those types of people that just enjoy being negative. They probably didn't follow their dream, and that's why they're unhappy.
That's a big one as well. They're still looking.
They're still looking.
But speaking of that, let's go back into the positive.
All right.
Let's try these out.
Real bourbon. Okay, first one we're going to have is our Devil's River Barrel Strength. This will be here on the left. This is 117 proof.
It's your left one right here.
Mm-hmm. This is 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. That's the mash bill on this one.
And you said the proof was what? How much?
117.
117. This is the
this is the
weakest. The weakest of okay.
He shot it. That's pretty good. These are sipping whiskeys, or
I saw you lean back. At first, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna sip it," but I saw you lean back, so I thought you were gonna take it all.
Yeah, this is designed to last like maybe an hour. You sip on this a little bit. Yeah,
I went too hard too fast.
You named the podcast right there. Right. So, tell me some of the notes that you got on that quick.
I messed up on that. I really thought, I saw you from the corner of the eye, so I was like, oh, he's taking it all. So I was like, I don't want to disrespect here, and I'll keep up with him.
Slamming that's probably got some burn.
A little bit. Not bad though. Like there's, again, this goes back to the high end whiskey stuff that you pay too much money and all you get is the burn.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you noticed that. So all of our whiskeys, I have 2 proprietary finishing processes that are still legal to keep it under the bourbon qualification, but one of them is taking the burn away. Not all of it. There's still burn there, but for 117 proof, that's pretty damn smooth. And I don't want to take away flavor. I just want to take away some of the distraction of too much heat, too much, methyl alcohol that's in every whiskey.
Yeah.
So we take a little bit of that out, but not flavor.
Yeah.
So you should notice that there's flavor still there, but not as much burn for that. The next one.
And I will say, even though it's strong. And it should not be shot like that, but there was only like a minor kick. Like there was the quick kick. Everything was flavored. Now my palate is not as sophisticated to say what I was tasting.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can give us a little more on that. But there was.
the typical notes you hear in bourbon.
There was some smoke. Is that?
Yeah, okay, that's from the barrel.
Perfect.
You'll hear caramel, honey. Leather, tobacco, those are all kind of subtle notes that you'll get within a whiskey profile. And then there's people that really go like crazy and they come up with all kinds of different things that they recognize, and petrichor and asparagus and grape jelly. You get these people that just whiskey nerds, and that's okay. They have an excellent palate, and it's just something that they notice.
I'm jealous of that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It takes practice, and the more you do it, the more you'll notice. And so I'd recommend sipping next time and listen and just tasting and smelling each one of those sips, and you'll notice these different nuances, and they come about. And as it opens up, you were asking earlier about water, putting a couple drops in there and let it open up, you'll notice more flavors kind of expanding from that too. So it's fascinating how whiskey changes and how they can be different. This is actually a small batch whiskey. A lot of people may not know what small batch is, but you see that a lot on brands. Small batch means 125 barrels or less were blended together to make this whiskey. The reason we blend that many barrels together is to get consistency. So Devil's River products should always taste the same if they're, say, small batch on them. Okay. If they're single barrel, it's going to taste like that one single barrel. If it's Distiller Select, it's going to taste like maybe these 10 or 12 barrels we selected to blend together that were exceptional. So this next one is...
Should I get some water before?
Yeah, you can cleanse your palate. Absolutely.
Now, is there any truth to like breathing through your teeth or like doing that?
There's a couple things. Like I've been a little stopped up from my Michigan trip, and the reason you want to nose a whiskey, first use good. Both, and then use one side or the other, because you're going to get different notes that you'll smell from different sides of you, because some of your sinuses may be blocked up more than others, which mine are right now. So I'm noticing my left nostril is picking up a lot more, notes than my right was kind of.
My right one right now smells like just the alcohol, but the left is like sweet.
How it's like that, yeah.
The left one is just sweet.
And the expectation, a lot of times people think, it's going to taste just like it smells, which is not the case. It's so that's called the nosing of the glass, left and right, and then center and left and right again. And then you take that first sip, not a shot.
Yes.
And they call it in Kentucky. They call it the Kentucky Chew. Sorry, the Kentucky Chew, which is when you were talking about, in your mouth and your. Yeah. We don't have that term here. We just keep it on your palate. We say, and so take a little bit of this and let it kind of linger on your palate and dance on there and see if you come up with any flavor notes.
There's sweetness to it. I can't like pinpoint it to a certain thing, but it's a lot sweeter. Well, I think it's an unfair judgment, but it tastes a lot sweeter than that one. Is that supposed to be?
That's accurate, actually. It's spent more time in the barrel, number one, so it's going to be a little bit more mellower. It's going to have still some burn, but it should have a sweetness profile. That's 75% corn as well. What else are you noticing? Any other things that kind of are familiar taste to you? Yeah, take another sip and see if you notice anything specific. And I can make suggestions, and all of a sudden you'll say, yeah, I recognize that, but I don't want to say that. I want you to tell me what you notice. Any kind of notes that this kind of tastes like that, or this, or dark cherry, dried fruit, caramel, honey, anything like that along those lines?
I want to say maybe I can get burnt honey.
Mm-hmm. Which is a great flavor profile, by the way. Burnt sugar, burnt honey is wonderful. It's that richness like you get in some of the desserts.
Like I almost want to say like chocolatey, but is that right? Because
absolutely.
I feel like
Absolutely.
I don't. When you mentioned cherry, I wanted to feel for that cherry. I don't feel it, but that could just be.
Everybody's different though. So our olfactory, our smell, our taste are different. Everyone's different. So, what you might notice, I may not, and vice versa. So that's the wonderful thing about whiskey as well, is it's to that individual person. So, but chocolate I hear quite a bit. Honey and burnt sugar I hear quite a bit, and so you're right on target.
Yeah, that's Absolutely. What I have. Like definitely the chocolate, definitely like burnt honey, like when you just like go over it just a little bit, it gets that little char.
Yeah, like a creme brulee a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a note also in whiskey, creme brulee. So this single barrel is a single barrel of whiskey that was chosen for its unique flavor profile. And what we do with this program is we have a retailer, let's just say a retail store, they buy a barrel from us. It creates about 30 cases of whiskey, and we hand label them for them, and then it goes into their stores. And so when you see a Devil's River single barrel, know that it's pretty damn good. It's going to be the kind of the higher end, but still reasonably priced. $49 for a single barrel hand selected is very reasonable.
No, so. Again, I'll go back to that saying that the prices on these are
fair. Right? Yeah. Right. So this last one we're going to do is my personal favorite. This is Devil's River Distiller Select. And this was just a few selected barrels that I put together, blended them together, that were just so notable for different reasons. And then what they do together just really stands out. So
it's darker. So is this what you were drinking earlier?
It is, yeah. So this is 117. This is 123 proof, and this is 120 proof. So these are all high proof whiskeys. Yeah. These are real bourbon nerd whiskeys right here. So
be jealous, nerds. A lot smoother. Mm-hmm. That's a lot smoother than even this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is that supposed to be? That's supposed to be stronger, right?
That's a different char on the barrel. It's 120 proof, so it's a little bit higher than that, but it's also aged longer, which also helps mellow it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
And the number 3 char helps accelerate the mellowing as well. So, but isn't it interesting how these, with all the same mash bill, are all different? Did you notice that? How they're all different.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I was really surprised with how smooth that was. I thought this one was going to have a kick.
Yeah.
I guess the whole time when we were thinking like left to right, I was bracing for that one to have a kick, and that's the smoothest one from the other two.
It's pretty special. I'm pretty proud of the Distiller Select, and
I can see why you would like it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, sitting around a campfire or just watching a football game, you can have a couple ounce glass of this and just sip on it through the course of the evening, and you'll be in a good spot. It's pretty good, approachable sipping whiskey.
Yeah. Now, remind me the name of it.
Devil's River.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're all
Devil's River Barrel Strength.
Barrel Strength.
Devil's River Single Barrel.
Single Barrel.
Devil's River Distiller Select.
Distiller Select. And this is the one that is
the most expensive.
Okay.
So you have expensive taste, Jorge.
Oh, man. My wallet doesn't. No, but oh man. But this is amazing.
Yeah, I'm the president of the Texas Distilled Spirits Association, and I have been for about 8 years. And it's been wonderful to see this industry in Texas grow, starting with Tito's 25 years ago. But the second distillery I did, we were like number 8 in the state, and now there's 210 distilleries. Most of them are very small, and that's okay. They make wonderful products. We've got all these wonderful distilled spirits being made in Texas. It's not just gin and vodka and rum and whiskey. It's eau de vie and absinthe and limoncello, orangecello, just all these wonderful things. And that didn't exist, 10 years ago in our state. And the amount of agriculture that we're using to make these wonderful products is all Texas grown. And so the jobs that our industry creates for small towns where they were dying on the vine until a distillery popped up in their town to bring in tourism. Distillery industry is great for the state. We create a ton of taxes to do our part to help, with the budgets of the cities and counties and states that we reside in. And it's been nice to see that Texas is now number 1 in the United States in vodka production because of Tito's and Deep Eddy and Enchanted Rock and Dripping Springs.
I'm surprised you're just dropping their names like that, promoting that.
They're fellow distillers. No, I'm just... And whiskey production, we're oscillating right now between number 3 and number 4 in the United States in just short 10, 12-year span. Texas is number 3 or 4 in the United States in whiskey production. That's pretty amazing. A distant third behind Kentucky and Tennessee, but we've moved up quite a bit in a fast, short amount of time. So I'm really proud of our Texas distillers.
In terms of Texas whiskey versus like the other whiskeys, I know growing up it was Kentucky. You just heard Kentucky. But it's so cool now that Texas whiskey is on the map now. And I think you guys are doing a great job with that. Especially with the fact that 2015 is not a long time ago.
Right. Well, you talked earlier about, what do you do? What advice would you give? I mean, I have a passion for this industry, and it's not just my company. I have a passion for Texas spirits, all Texas spirits. And I have a lot of friends in this industry all over the state that are making great products. So I promote Texas spirits, not just ours. I try to represent our industry well, and we go to the state capitol every 2 years to try to get laws changed. We now can sell bottles out of our distillery, which we weren't able to do that before.
Oh, wow.
And we just passed 3 new bills in the state legislature this last session, which went into effect September 1st. So we're very involved in trying to grow this industry, and we love the support of the public to help that happen.
That's interesting. I never even would have thought that you couldn't, sell your own bottles.
Seems pretty logical,
right? That's cool. Again, Mike, I appreciate this. I know we've gone a little bit longer than I promised, but I really had fun with this conversation. Thank you for this treat as well.
My pleasure.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. And I'm definitely feeling this now. So we've gone Too Hard, Too Fast with Mike Cameron of Devil's River Whiskey here in San Antonio, Texas. Check them out. Come visit. This is awesome. I had a great experience, and the area is beautiful. This whole distillery is.
Thank you.
It's very classy. It's got that old timey feeling, like the pre.
I have a total passion for Prohibition, and I wanted this to be authentic. Everything in here is old and original, from the 1920s, 1910 era, and I just think it was a cool time in our country's history. So I wanted to pay homage to it because this building was built in 1918. And so it had good bones when I first came in here before I started the renovation. So I just started filling it with this wonderful, beautiful, authentic, real furniture from that time period. And people love it. It's a kind of a going back in time experience.
It definitely feels like that. As soon as you walk in, and then you got the really fancy bar, it's the backdrop as you walk in. And then this basement where we're in, it has the speakeasy feel that I think that's what you guys call it as well.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely has that feel.
Well, good. I'm glad we accomplished that. The bar came from Boston. It was in a saloon from 1870, and I had it restored, and it was made before power tools. It's all hand-carved, beautiful piece. We have a ton of weddings and corporate events here, and people. I never thought people would want to get married in front of a bar, but they do. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, if this was around when I was getting married, for sure. But thanks again.
All right, my pleasure.
Too Hard, Too Fast with Mike Cameron. Bye. Oh, remember, dare to be you, dare to be weird. Bye.